Hey guys, so I got an interesting question the other day from one of my QA tester colleagues who he started out as a programmer, but he then went into quality assurance and testing instead. And he had this pretty cool idea for an application that he wanted to build with a web interface. And in essence, it's without giving too much away, it's a very advanced or more advanced or feature-rich version of Trello, if you know what that is. So he asked me for some tips about, these, like what technologies would I use to build this thing, right? And it sparked a nice conversation between us, and I said, well, considering that you have a lot of dragging and dropping and a lot of dynamic re-rendering on the page, I would choose React as the first option, that you should do that. Probably with like a bit of routing, so React Router. And considering, and he described it, it's like basically it's going to be an SPA. And so I said, okay, cool. So next up I would choose something like Node for the server side, and that's because you don't really have a need for a typed language. And for the most part, you're going to make AJAX calls to the server to like show the state on your SPA. So that's a nice choice. Then and for database purposes, I suggested to him that he takes a look at something very simple, either Postgres or MongoDB. I would probably choose MongoDB for this or something of that nature, because like most of what he's going to do, he doesn't really he needed relationship data. He needed to be able to reference different things in, like, basically he had relationships that he needed to represent between the different nodes on different tables. So I think I told him, Postgres to do that, and then Webpack for the bundling, and then I suggested to him to use just SAS because he doesn't have any prior knowledge of any of the other stuff. So I don't really see the benefit for him to learn. Like, this is a learning project for him. So I suggested that as well, and you can use Node SAS for that. And then Express and all this this is basically the boilerplate stack for anybody who's doing all JavaScript development at this point. And apart from that, I gave him the tip, like, because there is going to be a lot of dynamic content on the page, and you're going to have to sync that with your database, because every time you add a card, or you're like creating some text and linking these cards, that he had an option where you should be able to link cards, and then he wants to have a timeline system where you can show, like, every time you update a card, you need to save a snapshot of the card's updates so that you can scroll back in the timeline to see what the information was at a certain point in time, and then scroll forward again. And I told him what you should do here is to go for maximum performance, because this is a web application. Don't do what Jira is doing. Jira has, if you've ever worked with Jira and tried to fill out your tempo, you guys who are in the business, please tell me that if you're using tempo on Jira, then you know what Ajax hell is all about. Your buildings, that is hands down. Jira has hands down the worst Ajax experience I have ever had. The unfortunate, I hate it so much. I hate it with a passion. Like, for the love of God, put a loading icon, at least a loading icon when I click save, so I know that the fucking thing isn't broken. Sorry, yeah. Anywho, so I suggested to him, instead of having this idea, because this is like, he has a very similar issue where he's going to have to do a lot of dynamic updates and a lot of syncing with the database. And I said, don't do something like that. What you should be doing is that you should allow the user to locally use the browser's local storage system to locally allow the user to make as many changes as they want, and then you can save that in the browser. I mean, the odds that they're going to empty their cache in between sessions is very, very low. So even if they re-render the page, they still haven't lost any data, and you don't have to do the Ajax sync. wait until, and then you show a button while they're making updates, and you show a button, and then all it has to say is, do you want to save this? Yes, done. You have there's no reason to do this dynamic smart Ajax updating, at least not when the user is engaging with the application. You can be clever. I said to him, if you're really clever and you want to make it even a nicer experience, you can have an auto save function, and all you have to do is to wait for the idle, like an idle state. You have to you can set a timer or something. If the user is in no way interacting with the document, then it's safe for you to behind the scenes make a little Ajax call and save your state, because the initial load, like that's the beauty of it. If for something as a dashboard type of system or a Trello type of system that he has, he really only has to make one request to get the entire state of that Trello of that board. So it can be very performant if you just keep it locally. That's at least how I thought about this problem. And it's the reason why I'm telling you guys about this is to give you just a bit of an insight of, if you are a complete beginner and you want to do your first project with React or JavaScript or something like that, these technologies are fairly, it's a good starting point. It also illustrates, however, that in my opinion, there's a lot you need to learn. I mean, the list I gave you, that's much more complicated than, if you wanted to make a Java application, you can spin up a Java application in IntelliJ or even in Eclipse pretty quickly. Then again, you're not going to get a graphical interface or that's much more complicated. But that's the unfortunate part about being a front end. It's great for us guys who have already made that investment and know these things, because getting a job gets very easy, because because there's so much to know and so much to learn to get good at this. It's very difficult to find people who have been through this journey. And I mean, I'm nowhere near as good as I want to be, but I'm not a complete beginner. And for the most part, even if you have really seasoned, experienced developers who've been doing server-side for a long time, even those guys are struggling to keep up with how JavaScript is moving right now. But yeah, that's my little talk about what I said. The advice I gave to my colleague. Hopefully everything works out for him, because the idea was pretty cool.